Welcome to Immigration Review, your weekly source for immigration case law updates and insights. I'm your host, Kevin A. Gregg, a partner at the immigration, medical malpractice, and business litigation law firm Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, back again to review the week's precedential immigration cases, rummaging through the decisions so you don't have to. This podcast is sponsored by Serenade e-Immigration. If you're working in immigration law, you already know that there's never enough time in the day. That's why the team at e-Immigration has been sharing a ton of helpful resources to make your life a little easier. Head over to their resource center and you'll find on-demand webinars, practical tips for building your 2026 budget, and insights to help your team work smarter, not harder. Whether you're planning for growth or just trying to create a calmer workflow, there's something there for you. Check out eimmigration.com/IRP and start 2026 with more clarity and less stress. Or, of course, click on the special link in the show notes. This podcast is also sponsored by Gonzalez & Gonzalez Immigration Bonds. Immigration attorneys. Once you've secured a bond, let Gonzalez & Gonzalez take it from there. In business and family-owned for 75 years, Gonzalez & Gonzalez helps other families post immigration bonds quickly, easily, and with full support every step of the way. Sure, you can post directly with DHS, but that means no guidance, no help when something goes wrong, and a 4 to 6 month wait for a refund. With Gonzalez & Gonzalez, families get hands-on help throughout the entire process and typically get refunds within 1 to 2 weeks of receiving the I-391 notice. Tired of being the point of contact for every bond question? Let Gonzalez & Gonzalez take those calls. They'll handle the paperwork, the system issues, and the family's concerns, so you can focus on what really matters, winning the case and helping your clients stay in the country. You can reach Gonzalez & Gonzalez at 833-409-9200. Their fee? Just 2% plus $40, and for bonds of $10,000 or more, they can defer the fee and deduct it from the refund. Financing options? They've got those too. Give Gonzalez & Gonzalez a call, check them out at immigrationbond.com, or click on their special link in the show notes. And as always, this show does not constitute legal advice and has no bias other than to keep you up to date and to enable you, my dear colleagues, to excel in court. So, without further ado, let's start the review. Do you have questions about the EB-5 Immigration Investor Program that you always wanted to ask? Like, how can I, an awesome immigration attorney, start getting clients who want to do it and who by definition can pay my fee? This special episode interview is for you. Irina Restova is an attorney and FINRA-regulated investment broker who founded EB-5 Support based on her decade-long legal experience and background in banking and economics. She's licensed to practice law in Florida and holds Series 7 and 63 securities registrations. I'm not going to lie, I don't really know what that means, but it sounds good. Put in layman's terms, and as you'll hear, Irina will teach you what you need to know to add EB-5 to your practice, and she'll hold your hand while you do your first cases. For free. And as a broker, she can point you and your client in the right direction for their EB-5 investment, something that you and I cannot do if we're interested in following the law. Irina can be found in the vendor rooms of many immigration conferences, and many of you have probably met her before. For those who haven't, allow this to be the start of your conversation with Irina. I learned many things, and I hope you do too. And so, without further ado, my conversation with Irina Restova about her EB-5 support project and all things EB-5. Irina Restova, welcome to the Immigration Review Podcast. It is January 26th, 2026 in the evening. How are you doing?
I'm very good. How are you, Kevin?
I'm good. As I always say, I'm on the West Coast, so when I do these at night, it's not so much night for me, so I feel like I'm better. more rejuvenated. I'm currently in the second half of the day coffee period of my day, so I've got more caffeine. Point is, I just caffeined up. It's that part of the day. You seem to be more on a down, getting ready for the evening. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I'm very jealous because I cannot have coffee after 3. And I was looking at your background, the windows and the light, was wondering where you were. It starts to make sense. Since you have the coffee and all I had was a piece of chocolate to elevate my mood, you're gonna have to carry this
I'm
conversation
bringing
a
the
little
energy.
bit.
That's right. That's right. Kevin, how are you doing today? I'm doing great, Kevin. How are you? No, then it depends on the chocolate. We are here today to talk about the EB-5 program, your new venture, EB-5 support, EB-5 mentorship, and really
Mhm,
everything going on with EB-5. You and I have talked in the past. Other attorneys have talked to me in the past. EB-5 sometimes feels like this unattainable thing for many
mhm.
immigration attorneys. You're here to make to prove that wrong. But
Absolutely.
so strap in if you're listening. But before we get into it, it is January 26, 2026. I I'm not my head's not in the right place. I'm not gonna lie. I have to mention I have to mention it. Alex Preddy was killed a couple of days ago. Renee Good was killed a couple of weeks ago. There's horrifying federal government violence in Minnesota being conducted in a way that seems intended to go far beyond immigration. Important to EB-5, nationals from 75 countries or so cannot immigrate to America. Immigration detention has exploded, and the immigration world is completely under attack. By the way, they're putting EB-5 people in removal proceedings. A lot of them are our clients. You're no longer a practicing attorney, I understand, but you are an attorney. You were an immigration attorney. You are an immigrant. How are you coping? How are you doing life right now?
That's excellent. And that's not always easy. And it's not easy every day, right? This weekend was like I had to take a day just completely off of emailing anybody, my clients or myself, just because what I'm seeing is extremely worrisome. However, one of the things, and I will tell you kind of how it affected my work. When I'm speaking to clients from overseas who are considering relocating to the United States now, this goes into that conversation. The state of affairs, the uncertainty in any visa category. And I'm actually working very little with individuals who are coming from overseas. Some of them have put their processes on hold. Some of them have canceled doing the EB-5 visa. And I don't disagree with them. I'm not sure that if I was coming from another country right now, I would want to physically relocate my family here. The majority of people I'm working with today, they're already in the United States. So they're here on other visa types. And for me, my conversations have been quite positive because it's been giving them hope. And that's what makes it easier for me to come to the office because throughout the day, I'm speaking to Venezuelans whose TPS status, became uncertain, and we are providing alternatives. So seeing that kind of solution brings in a lot of joy to my day and honestly positive emotions. But yeah, I think that's the main difference. Like if someone is currently abroad and they're comfortable, I'm not exactly trying to encourage them to start this process today. But if they're already here, this definitely gives them a more certain path.
Well put. And it's a good point. I think all of us right now are diving into the work in part because it feels like that is a way that we can contribute to make a more just society and to fight back, should that be your desire. Thank you for sharing how you're coping with it. I know everybody is doing different things. And hats off to everybody in Minnesota bearing what like negative 40 degrees with wind chill. I'm in shorts right now in San Diego. I don't even those people are a different breed. I think that was already the case in the Midwest and Minnesota. They were already a different breed, but this is
For individuals in Minnesota, they're
you-
braving the weather. And of course, anyone who's exercising their right of free speech, peacefully. I think it's really important. And I think it's really important that we continue to express what our opinions are.
Well, let's talk EB-5. The firm, the Kurzban law firm, we're involved in EB-5 pretty significantly. John Pratt, Ed Ramos, Liz Montano the most, and of course Ira. And I get my hands into it a fair amount as well. I think a lot of people don't know exactly what the EB-5 program is, especially because there's so many subparts to it and it's changed. What is, can you give us 5 minutes? What is the EB-5 program, Irina?
Well, since you mentioned John and Ira, I just saw them last Friday, and I will mention that John, Ira, and I and Ron Klasko just finished an EB-5 training manual intended for foreign practitioners. So it's not for US attorneys, but it's international attorneys, international migration consultants who are trying to learn what EB-5 is and start, referring their clients to US professionals for those services. We just created and finished drafting that memo, and it's going to become part of the official education program for the Investment Migration Council, which is an international organization that provides education for all investment migration programs around the world. So I just wanted to say that because, you mentioned Ira
No,
and
that's
John.
great. That's great.
Yeah, and it was so cool because I got to see them, which we all took a photo together to submit to IMC with the final draft. So they're amazing. They're really, obviously they're knowledgeable in everything, and EB-5 including. So let's talk about EB-5. I'll actually tell you, I learned about EB-5 while I was in law school, and I heard a story on NPR about this investment program that allows foreign nationals to obtain green cards in the US if they make a qualifying investment in a project that creates 10 jobs. And I remember thinking, wow, this is incredible. I'm coming from Eastern Europe. I know so many individuals that want to immigrate to the United States, and they just didn't know what lawful pathways were available to individuals, who run their own businesses. They're not planning to be employed in the United States as an employee. And so I started researching this program for some very close family friends. And then I convinced my law school to send me to an EB-5 conference so I could learn about it and kind of bring back the information to the campus.
wow.
Well, that part was easy to convince them of. The more challenging part was to explain why this conference was taking place in the Bahamas.
Yeah, it's because it's
But
EB-5.
yeah, it was a great conference. I did come back and I presented it to law school. And then as soon as I graduated, I knew that that's what I wanted to focus on. At the time, I had a hard time finding law firms who have filed EB-5 cases. And this was about 15 years ago. And it kind of sparked my interest. I'm like, we have this incredible program. The investment amount was just $500,000. I'm like, why can't I find attorneys who know about this? And what I've discovered after interviewing a lot of attorneys is they said, well, we've heard about this program, but we don't know how to file those cases. And it's really hard to find mentors because it was just such a niche industry. And then they said, well, another problem is even if we can figure out how to do the petitions, clients want to know which projects to invest in, and we're not financial advisors, so we don't know what to recommend to them. And funny enough, this lack of access to education in the immigration world, to filing cases, and this kind of lack of access to financial professionals continues on today, 15 years later. So I actually started practicing, ended up growing my firm, practiced for 10 years, filed over 700 cases. And when I decided that I was going to switch from being an immigration attorney to being a FINRA broker, I decided that all the training material that I used to create for my own team, for my paralegals, for my associates, that I was going to update it and I was going to make it available for free online to other immigration practitioners. Because I found that so many individuals, so many immigration attorneys actually wanted to learn how to file EB-5 cases, so it could become another tool in the toolbox. But because of it still being such a niche, they just couldn't find attorneys who had the time to mentor them, which is completely understandable. When you're a practicing attorney, you don't have time to mentor anyone.
Right.
And so that's how EB-5 support for attorneys was born. It's, because I've experienced kind of the challenges of having to learn about this program. And eventually I found attorneys who did EB-5 cases, and I went and I worked for them. But that's, I wanted to make sure that attorneys today had access to these training materials and they could look at sample petitions and educate themselves on how to file these cases.
So to address a couple of things that you just said. First, I find it interesting that you've used your training materials to create something for the larger immigration community. That's how Ira's book developed as well. I don't know if you've ever spoken to him. Ira's book started out as an outline for his law school class that exploded into this 3,000 page treatise that, he's been updating for 40 years now. So I suppose you're in good company there, although that's probably how a lot of these things happen. The podcast too, the podcast page where all the cases are bulleted, those are things that help me find cases. If it helps you, if it helps your staff, if it helps your students, probably helps other people too. So yeah, I suppose you're in good company there when you're with Ira. I want to return to EB-5 support, your new venture, but to lay the groundwork for the EB-5 program generally, and please correct me if I'm wrong because I am not the expert, but if you're interested, an EB-5 visa is an employment-based way to get a green card in America or to immigrate to America as an immigrant. You initially, if it's approved, you're a conditional lawful permanent resident, and then eventually you have to petition to remove the conditions in a way similar to what you do with the family-based conditional green card process if you marry within 2 years. But that investment itself, there's two primary ways, right? You can actually get qualified by USCIS yourself, create your own company or your own project, show that you've made 10 jobs, do all of that. Or you can invest in a regional center, which seems to be what you were mostly talking about, right? People are interested in what projects they can invest in. Am I right at the 10,000 foot level? And if so, I'd be interested in hearing more about regional centers from you.
You're absolutely right. So there are two EB-5 programs, Direct EB-5 and Regional Center EB-5. Direct EB-5 requires the investor to manage their own business and create 10 full-time jobs that are W-2 salaried jobs. Regional Center EB-5 program was created. So let's go into the history of EB-5 because I'm a little bit of an EB-5 nerd.
Please.
Direct EB-5 was created by Congress in 1990, and they thought, great, we'll tell these foreign investors, invest $1 million, or at the time it was $500,000, create 10 jobs, and you can get a green card. Quickly, Congress realized that for a foreign national who's coming in here, often not speaking the language, not knowing the local laws, creating a business from scratch that's going to need 10 full-time workers is extremely difficult, right? And
it's insane.
So, yeah, it's insane. Most businesses do not need 10 direct employees. Like, even
to ask a foreigner to do it is quite a astonishing thing.
Exactly. Even if that foreigner is an entrepreneur in their home country, the rules and the laws and everything is different. And what small business needs 10 full-time workers?
Right.
By the time you have 10 full-time workers, it's not a small business. Congress actually realized it, and 2 years later, they rolled out a regional center EB-5 program. So that was 1992. They said, hey, we have all these American companies that have already tested whatever product or thing that they're doing, and they need to expand, and they need money to expand. So why don't we marry them together with these foreign investors? And we will allow American companies to take money from foreign investors, pool that money together. The money goes into these American projects, and the jobs that the American companies create are going to be counted towards these individuals to meet their EB-5 program requirements. And that's how the regional center program was born. A regional center is any private entity that applied to USCIS for a designation. And it's called a regional center because they usually give you a designation for a specific region. It's rarely statewide. Usually they'll give you a designation for like South Florida or maybe, I don't know, Central California. And so once you have this designation, what that means is you can go and solicit multiple investors and say you get 10 investors, you pool their funds together, and then you can decide, you can either develop your own project or with time, what USCIS has said, the regional center doesn't even have to deploy the money into their own project that they control. They can actually pick a developer and just finance a developer. So today, industry has evolved and developed over many years. So the EB-5 program was virtually unused until about 2007. It had additional requirements and rules that made it very difficult to use. For example, one of the requirements was all the investors had to file their I-526 petitions together. So practically, it was very difficult to get multiple investors because the first one would have to wait until the last one would come in.
Yeah.
So when they abolished that rule, it made life much easier. As soon as you invest, you can file your individual petition. But with many changes, we've arrived in about 2008 when real estate developers realized, hey, this EB-5 program sounds kind of amazing for new construction real estate. We're building new buildings. We create a ton of jobs through this construction process. So why don't we start bringing in investors and allowing them to participate in these projects? We create the jobs, they get the green card, and everybody understands real estate. For a foreign investor to invest in a tech company or a medical company that they're not familiar with, it's much harder than for them to go and invest in a Marriott hotel or a hospital or a multifamily building.
Picture this. It's 10 p.m. on a Friday. You finally sit down to dinner when your phone rings. A panicked client just received a USCIS denial and has no idea what to do. And you answer because that is what immigration lawyers do. The truth is, you don't have to be the one answering every single time. Staffy Live gives you 24/7 bilingual intake specialists who handle those urgent calls with the same empathy, precision, and professionalism that your clients expect from you. And with Staffy Outsourcing, the casework that absorbs your nights and weekends disappears from your plate. Document collection, forms, evidence, packages. They prepare everything. All you do is review and submit to USCIS. I-130s, I-45s, waivers, adjustments, and more than 18 additional immigration case types. Staffy's team handles the workload so you can focus on the legal strategy that only attorneys can provide. Hundreds of immigration attorneys already use Staffy Live and Staffy Outsourcing to reclaim their evenings, their weekends, and their peace of mind without sacrificing client care. And right now, your first 3 cases are free when you get started. Visit staffy.cc or call 786-891-5619 or click on that special link in the show notes. Because you deserve a practice that grows without burning you out. Practically speaking, a regional center is designated, approved by USCIS, and that regional center works with other investors, other companies, and they determine that in that section, in that region, they're going to build a old folks home in rural Indiana. And because it's rural Indiana, they're building this facility. It helps America. Maybe you only have to invest now about $800,000. They don't really have control in the construction. They're a minority shareholder, a minority partner, but this facility is getting built in Indiana. It's going to help rural Indiana. They're going to show that they created their 10 jobs with their investment, and eventually they're going to get a green card. In practice, that's how I've seen it play out. Or it's a hotel in Northern Oregon, or it's a supermarket in Florida. You don't have to be a business expert to invest. You just have to have the money and trust your regional center.
Absolutely. So you can be essentially a passive investor. There's some, management requirement in EB-5, but in the regional center system, that just means you as an investor have voting rights. But that's what made the EB-5 regional center program actually so successful. Today, 95% of all EB-5 investors utilize the regional center program, not the direct. And unfortunately, the ones that do try to do it themselves and create the 10 jobs, the denial rates on both I-526 and I-229 petitions on average are much higher for obvious reasons, because it's harder to build that type of small business. But you're absolutely right. Today, EB-5 investors have dozens of different projects that they can choose from. It can be a hotel, it can be senior living. Brightline in Florida, the train that goes kind of across Florida, that was financed with EB-5 capital. Those investors already have their green cards, got repaid. There's more than 40 charter schools in the state of Florida that were financed with EB-5 investors. These charter schools are operating. The Ritz-Carlton in New York, the second one that they built, was financed through EB-5. We have a ton of rural projects, lots of ski resorts in Colorado and Utah.
Don't say Vermont.
No. We don't need to. The ski resorts in EB-5 have cleared their name because one of the initial ski resorts that happened was not great.
But that's a good point. And jokes aside, there's a big fraud in Vermont. When you're taking in a bunch of foreign money, especially into real estate, there's the opportunity for fraud. By the way, fraud committed by U.S. citizens taking in the foreign money, and then the foreigners who invested have been doubly screwed. They have lost their money and they might not get a green card. You are a registered broker.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, and why is it important in EB-5 world?
Thank you for asking that, because it's a new thing in the EB-5 world, and many attorneys who've been practicing for years still don't know what a FINRA broker is. So I'm happy to explain. A registered FINRA broker means someone who has passed different financial exams, was qualified by FINRA. FINRA is a financial regulatory authority that regulates investment professionals in all of the United States. So if you're selling stocks or bonds, if you're managing money, you need to be registered and regulated by FINRA. So I am a registered FINRA broker, which means I can provide financial advice and I can do independent due diligence on different investment opportunities. And that's what I do today. I was a practicing attorney for 10 years. Then I became a FINRA broker to help EB-5 investors, because there are so many different projects. And how does an investor know which project is better and worse? And you brought up fraud in EB-5 very, very validly so. Anytime there's money involved, someone is going to try to take advantage of it. And the type of fraud that we have seen affect the EB-5 industry is shady, as you said, Americans who are taking advantage of these new immigrants. They're putting together projects that are either not solid, or there were a few instances where there were no projects. It was just completely fraudulent documents. So those are exactly the kind of things that a FINRA broker can help prevent.
Yeah.
The fact that I've been in this industry for almost 15 years helps, because I know most of the regional center legal teams and executive teams personally, and I've worked with them for many years. But every single project that comes out that we will consider for our investors, we run independent due diligence, meaning we actually review all their agreements to make sure that the terms are suitable for our investors and there's no shady stuff going on that could be, affect our investors poorly. But then we do independent bad actors checks on the principals. We check land entitlements, to make sure the land was purchased, there's no outstanding lawsuits. And of course, all the many different systems in place that most good EB-5 projects have. They're separate escrow accounts that are managed by either banks or law firms that hold the investors' money. So the developer himself can't just grab it and go buy a yacht. The bank releases it in parts as the construction moves forward. There are special fund managers that now have to be utilized. So a third-party company that manages the flow of the money, and that was implemented in 2022. So we look at all of those things in order to make sure that the options we put in front of our investors have been checked for, do they really exist? Is the team competent? Do they have any negative, history of fraud and so on?
It's an important thing for immigration attorney listeners to know. We can't tell you what to invest in. We can't even really advise you what to invest in because we're not financial brokers. We'd run afoul of the law if we do that. So immigration attorneys who are listening, if you want to get involved in this, be very careful about that because you can't do that. You can do that.
Correct. And that was my big motivation of becoming a FINRA broker. When I started practicing in the EB-5 field, obviously I've noticed that my clients, were asking about different projects. They wanted a professional to help them analyze the different options they were looking at. And back when I started in this industry, there were no FINRA brokers who specialized in EB-5 projects, right? So back then, my investors would have to proactively hire CPAs, securities lawyers. They would pay a bunch of fees, sometimes to have a due diligence on one project, and they would get back a response saying, it's not such a great deal. And then we have to start all over and pay a bunch of those fees again to a different team. So I thought there was a better solution in place. I knew that licensed FINRA brokers were entitled to be compensated by the projects, and all the projects always had a marketing budget. They use this, so when a regional center project is created, they always create a marketing budget because they know they're going to be sourcing investors from China and India. They're going to be traveling, and they need that budget. When they're sourcing investors through brokers, they use that budget to compensate brokers. So in the US, to be compensated by a project, you have to be a licensed broker. So part of the reason why I became a broker is because I believed that investors really needed professional advice, and I wanted to be able to deliver it without a significant cost impact to the investors. I didn't want to have to charge my investors $50,000 per due diligence report on a project. So being a licensed broker helps with that. We actually, as a firm, incur our own due diligence costs on all the projects that we vet. But then once I've vetted 2 deals, I can offer those 10 deals to one investor or 100 investors, and it doesn't increase the cost.
There is clearly a need for EB-5 mentorship, like there is in habeas mentorship and removal defense mentorship and everything. So please tell me about EB-5 support, your relatively new project, why you're doing it, what it is.
Sure. So EB-5 support for attorneys is a project that I started now, I think 3 years ago, and it's training and mentorship for immigration attorneys who either want to learn how to file EB-5 cases or they just want to improve their skill set. So as I mentioned before, because I was practicing for 10 years and I filed volume EB-5 cases, towards the end of my practice, we were filing as a firm more than 100 cases a year. That gave me tremendous exposure. I also created a ton of training material for my own staff. And I had a really cool, very diverse book of business. I didn't have just clients coming from Asia or just from Latin America. I think I filed an EB-5 case pretty much for any country that has ever utilized this program. And so I pulled together all that knowledge, my tutorials, the checklist that I used to use for staff, the procedures where I wrote out from start to end what an attorney is doing, what the paralegal is doing, how to source different funds, source of funds from different countries. And I updated those materials and uploaded them to an online portal. And I made it available to attorneys for free. Any attorney who's an immigration attorney can create an account with just your email and name. When you log in, you kind of sign a statement that you're a practicing attorney. And you can access training materials, checklists that you can just download and use in your own law firm. And I do monthly webinars that I record and upload and different subtopics. What to do if you're dealing with an investor from an OFAC sanctioned country, or, what to do if your investor wants to use a loan and use the proceeds of the loan to finance EB-5. So we're creating a whole library of video material that's available based on topic on this portal. And there are two reasons why I did this and two reasons why I don't charge for it. One, it's my way of being able to give back to the community. I've had some incredible mentors throughout my legal career and just incredible attorneys who have, been able to or dedicated their time anytime I had a question. Ira is definitely one of those people who, despite how busy he is, he tries to always respond if he can on an issue, if he knows about that issue. I've had other attorneys who mentored me. So part of why I wanted EB-5 support for attorneys to be there is because I wanted to give back to the community. Another reason for that was, now that I'm a FINRA broker, I wanted to start building relationships with more law firms because I already had kind of my pool of clients and other attorneys who knew me who were sending me clients for project selection. But as this program becomes more and more useful over the years, having this training program allows me to build those relationships. And now some of the attorneys that have completed the training already have EB-5 clients, and some of those clients need project selection services. And that's where I can step in as a FINRA broker. And there's actually a third reason, which it was personal frustration that immigration legal community was pretending that EB-5 did not exist.
Yeah. So it's your personal vendetta.
I'll kind of vent my frustration. Like, I never filed, for example, like a domestic abuse victims visa, but I still knew it existed. So when I was doing my consultations, I had a checklist. I would try to vet every single possible visa type. And if I don't know how to do that visa, then I would refer that client to an attorney who knew how to do that. I cannot tell you how many times in my career I've had an investor that I was working with who told me that they have either done multiple consultations with immigration attorneys or they've been working with immigration attorneys for years and they were offered E2, EB-1, PERM, and no one has ever mentioned the existence of EB-5.
I think the takeaway there is free mentorship, really, just to take a step back. That's a free, if you hear nothing else from this interview, you hear free mentorship.
To elaborate on the free mentorship, so it's not just that you can go online and pull down the materials and sample petitions and study them. But I realized that, you can read all the materials, but when you get your first case, sometimes you have questions.
Always. You can't do any case for the first time without someone holding your hand a bit.
Yeah. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I hold people's hands? But then if this community grows, what's one way that these, attorneys are not going to feel left out? So to solve for that, I created a WhatsApp chat group. It's called EB-5 Support for Attorneys. Any attorney or paralegal can join. And now we are a community of over 300 attorneys, and it's all just EB-5 questions. You're handling your first case or you're handling your, 200th case. You can go into the chat group and ask your questions. I try to answer most of the questions myself. But now that this community has grown, I have some other tremendous practitioners who are kind of chipping in, and it's been great. I am a very strict admin. I don't let people chatter because we need clean lines of communication to exchange materials. So when people start trying to have a personal conversation, I politely ask them to move it to their DMs.
Yeah, you
But
need that. You need that.
yeah, but it's a great, so like if you use the EB-5 support training material, you can just log into the chat group and you will never feel alone, and you'll have a whole community that will support you.
But you still have to have a lot of money, right? I mean, how can a client who doesn't have $800,000 cash sitting around realistically benefit from the EB-5 program?
Well, let's be very honest. The EB-5 program should not be for people who do not have the means to utilize it, right? And actually, as an investment advisor, I am very clear when I start seeing that people, some individuals are trying to leverage themselves, like they're trying to borrow money and invest like all of their life savings to do EB-5. It is my duty as a FINRA broker to warn them and explain that, this is a real investment. No real investment is guaranteed. You're investing in a real business. The business can potentially take losses. So you should not be taking a financial risk that you cannot afford, right? But I will say this, and this comes up a lot. I've had so many attorneys say, oh, none of my clients can afford EB-5. You absolutely do not know. Even if you're doing removal defense, people don't walk around talking about how much money they have, but you will be surprised how many individuals do have the means for EB-5. So this is something that should be mentioned. They could have inheritance, they can have businesses, their equity in the home. Right now, a lot of the investors I'm working with, they've been in H-1Bs in the US for 7 years. They bought a home for $200,000. Now this home is worth, $1 million because the neighborhood turned. And on top of that, in their savings in the 401k, their total net worth is close to 2 million, although their annual income is maybe 150,000. So, and a lot of, obviously international, I have Ukrainians who came on U4U, but they can afford EB-5. I have Venezuelans and so on. International students. Almost all international students who are studying in the top 200 US universities, the vast majority, their families can afford EB-5. Why? Their families can afford to pay $500,000 on average for their education.
It's an important thing to remember. That's a lot of students.
I looked it up. 1 million international students in the US. Let's assume that, some of those people are like studying in language schools and some other schools. But if you look at top 200 universities, their international student body is usually a couple thousand, and the tuition is between 60,000 and 80,000 plus living expenses. So if a family can afford a 4 to 5 year education at close to 100,000 a year per just one child, that family usually can afford an $800,000 investment.
An investment that, by the way, is supposed to give a return. It's not supposed to lose money. It could lose money, but most of the projects, I imagine, that you're recommending do have a return, or that is the intent, of course, because it's financial before immigration. The idea is that it's an investment. Elevate your advocacy and storytelling skills at the annual Immigration Court Trial Advocacy College. Registration is now open. The annual Immigration Court Trial Advocacy College convenes every year in April, only in Kansas City, Missouri, hosted by the Pen and Sword, that awesome community resource founded by Reka and Michael Sharma Crawford. This year, the program has been reimagined and reworked to address the current climate of aggressive deportation enforcement. These times are not ordinary, so the program had to be extraordinary. Expanding from 3 to 4 days, the Trial College provides comprehensive training from beginning to end, real cases taught by real litigators in real courtrooms. The skills you need, the confidence you deserve, and the mentors you look up to, all in one place. Register early to avoid disappointment at www.thepen-and-swordkc.org or at the special links in the show notes. Use special code ImmigrationReview26 to get $50 off the Trial Advocacy College this year. That's capital I, capital R.
So it is an investment, exactly. And so with proper due diligence, we can eliminate a lot of unnecessary risks. And of course, there's still a real business risk. You can build a hotel and the hotel opening happens to be when COVID starts. And it's very possible to take a loss in that investment. But um, really strong projects, they return their investment in about 4 to 5 years on average. So you're not making much of an interest. Most EB-5 investors are making less than 1% interest return, but for strong projects, we get the capital back in about 4 to 5 years. Actually, I just got 3 emails this week for investors that I used to represent as an attorney, and 3 emails saying your funds have been deposited to your bank account. So those are very pleasant to receive, for sure.
So it's a zero. So those people essentially paid $0 for a green card. They just had money at risk for 5 years. In
Well, correct.
retrospect,
So there's costs. I think an average the costs accompanying the EB-5 program are close to 100,000. But those costs are immigration attorneys' fees, government filing fees, and regional center administrative fees. So regional centers do charge typically an administrative fee. And that's for them, because they can't use any of the 800,000 for their own expenses. They have to account for the 800,000 going into the job creating project.
yeah.
And so they typically will charge an admin fee. So the costs for an investor are about 100,000, but again, immigration attorneys, government filing fees, and admin fees. But the actual investment goes in the project and then comes back as long as the project succeeded, it comes back 4 to 5 years later. And usually there's a very small interest rate like that gets paid to them annually, 0.5% or usually less than 1% interest rate.
I hate to talk about the future because the future of this country and the future of immigration right now, as we sit here in January 2026, literally could be anything. I have no idea what's going to happen, whether there will still be immigrants, whether there will be a United States. We're at that point. Who knows? Will we all be immigrants? But assuming a country and assuming an immigration system, what does the future of EB-5 look like specifically? There's been a little volatility in the past. There was the big statute a couple of years ago where the regional center program finally got codified after Chuck Schumer and Chuck Grassley duked it out in the Senate. What does the future look like for EB-5? And as you answer my compound question, how does this weird gold card thing play into it?
What a fun question.
Thank you.
So Gold Card has been the biggest marketing campaign for the EB-5 program. And the one thing I say often, I think Donald Trump is intuitively one of the best marketers I have ever seen. He markets ideas, and the marketing is there.
He's Barnum and Bailey.
Yeah. Do these ideas come to fruition? Not always, but the marketing part is amazing. So the gold card, as we already know in the immigration world, that has become official. You can apply for the gold card. The requirement is that you have to gift $1 million to the US government.
Gift.
I've even heard, yes, it's a gift, it's a donation. So the main difference between the gold card and the EB-5 program are, two main differences. EB-5 program was actually implemented by Congress. It's law. There's a legal basis, and it has a 30-year history of working. And it is not a donation program. It is an investment. So as long as you invest in a project that has succeeded, the assets of that project are liquidated or refinanced, and you get your money back in a few years. The gold card does not give you that option. It's a donation to the US government.
Of how much money?
$1 million.
I thought it was 5 million.
Absolutely. The initial announcement that came out in the spring of 2025 said there's going to be a $5 million gold card. When they rolled out the program a few months later via an executive order, the amount was changed to $1 million. Perhaps they realized that there are not too many people in this world that can afford a $5 million donation. And so they changed it. The requirement is $1 million if it comes from an individual and $2 million if a corporation pays for you. And I believe it is $1 million per family member. So in EB-5, the minimum investment amount covers the entire family. So the spouse, the investor, the spouse, and the children under 21. In the Gold Card program, I believe it has to be per family member.
And in addition to all those negative things, I mean, the difference between, forget about the money amount, the difference between a gift and an investment, that's just economics 101.
Yeah.
Gift you don't get back. But, I was laughing over here, no one could see it, as you were very clearly and lawyerly and unemotionally saying the difference. And what did you say? You said, the EB-5 program is actually a law. Right,
Yes.
right. With a 30-year, the gold card is the whims of an insane president who wants a donation. Like the difference between something being literally a law passed by the House and the Senate and the fever dream of an 80-year-old man is a little different, right? It's a little important.
I
Maybe
mean,
not.
it is, most immigration attorneys will probably agree. We don't know what the legal basis is for the gold card and whether or not it's going to hold up. Because we expect that at some point someone is going to litigate because they're not creating additional visa numbers. What happens when the administration changes? Is it still going to be honored? So we don't know if there's any legal basis for the executive order upon which this program was based. But so far, I'm not seeing, I've actually had a few investors reach out to me and saying, we started researching the gold card and we realized there's an EB-5 program and now we want to move forward
Yeah.
with EB-5 because we realized that that's real and the gold card is unknown. So like I said, it's been sort of a marketing program for EB-5 to a degree. It served as a marketing campaign.
Well, what's the future of EB-5 then?
So right now, the EB-5 direct program is permanent. That's what they wrote in 1990. The regional center program was never made permanent. It gets renewed every few years. The last renewal was in 2022, and it has a sunset date of September 30th, 2027. Because it's been renewed for the last 30 years, and we are now, in my opinion, in one of the best times for EB-5, lots of improvements, lots of investment. There's billions of dollars. I mean, literally like between $5 and $10 billion per year coming in through the EB-5 program. I do believe it's going to get renewed in 2027. But here's something really important for your listeners to know. The EB-5 program has a grandfathering protection that is in force until September 30th of this year. So September 30th, 2026. Those investors who are filing their petition this year are going to be grandfathered in, even if the program is not renewed by Congress in the future years. So you're asking me what's the future of EB-5? This is a massive year for EB-5. We're seeing a huge increase of investors. And I've been telling my immigration attorney colleagues that you want to notify your clients if they're considering this program. They need to understand that the next 8 months may be their last time to use the program in its current form, right? Where you have the minimum investment amount is $800,000 and you have this grandfathering protection locked in. So if an investor is considering this program, the next 8 months are great. After that, you can still invest in 2027 and you can still file your I-526, but you are assuming the risk that if in September 2027 the program is not renewed, you may not get your green card. Again, I don't think it's going to be a huge risk, but it's there. Another important thing to note is the minimum investment amount is going to be automatically adjusted upwards on January 1st, 2027. So they're going to recalculate it for inflation, and it's going to go up a little bit on January 1st, 2027.
You know this a lot better than me. This is your world. And so I hedge with what I'm about to say, but I don't know about it not being renewed. You have to say that and that you have to warn about that, but I can't imagine it being worse than what happened in 2021, 2022. That was chaos, and everything was stalled for so long. And even that, it all came back. Everyone got the benefit. The Senate realized how important EB-5 and the regional center program is. I don't know. I'm a little bullish.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
And I
bullish
love
on it.
that you brought it up and shared your feelings. And just for the audience, the EB-5 program lapsed in 2021 and it was not renewed. So we didn't have the program for 9 months. Luckily, USCIS put all the pending petitions in abeyance. So they didn't deny them, they didn't send them back. They just kind of left them pending. And what happened over those 9 months is a lot of stakeholders were fighting with each other on how they wanted the new EB-5 program to look like, right? And so eventually they all got together, they agreed, and they passed the Reform and Integrity Act in 2022 with updates and changes and honestly improvements. Now, it's again, we're going to get nerdy because that's what the show is for.
Hey,
So,
only I can say that.
all
Please
right, then
continue.
you say it.
No, I will
Um,
not say it.
so we're going to go a little deep. The reason the EB-5 program until 2021 was actually attached to the continued resolutions bill. So every time the budget was extended, the EB-5 program would be extended. So we never really worried about it fully lapsing because they're like, as long as eventually they'll have to pass the budget. And then there was a senator in early 2021 who went and detached the EB-5 program from continued resolutions bill. And he did so intentionally because for 5 years prior to that date, different lobbying organizations, different EB-5 regional centers, different congressmen and senators have been arguing over the changes that they wanted to make to the EB-5 program, and they would just not come together and would not agree on something. So this was his way of pushing that agreement forward. He was like, oh, if you guys don't come to some agreement, we're not going to renew the program.
Right.
And it worked. I mean, it lapsed, everybody freaked out, came to the table and started to negotiate, I think, in a much more agreeable manner. I have to say, I'm very proud of what they've done with this program in 22. We got a bunch of perks that we didn't have before. So number one, the grandfathering protection is really nice, right? Number two, we got concurrent adjustment. We could not have concurrent adjustment with EB-5 before. You had to file the I-526 petition, wait for it to get approved, and do concurrent adjustment. Now we have concurrent adjustment. We also have the 245K protection. So that's been, when you earlier asked me how I'm dealing with my day-to-day, I am kind of the lifeboat who's been coming and collecting people after the flood. So is it great that a flood has happened? No, but being in this lifeboat and being able to get people in and get them to safety has been really rewarding. So as I said, there's so many people who are either in long-term non-immigrant statuses that their kids are aging out, like E2s, perm categories that are backlogged, NIW, EB1s that are becoming more difficult. A lot of those individuals are now coming over to use the EB-5 program, as well as TPS statuses that have been canceled. Or I've had a few students who didn't realize that they missed their I-20 extensions. They fell out of status. We were able to use the 245K protection, file their EB-5 case with a concurrent adjustment, and now I just got one approval actually a few weeks ago for one of those. So it's been, it's been a little bit of a lifeboat in the current environment.
Another thing, because as I think I mentioned, the EB-5 people who come to the Kurzban firm, we do have investors, but often they're coming because something has gone wrong. Previously, we have people in removal proceedings right now, and I'll tell you, no non-citizen is committing fraud in the EB-5 program. At worst, they've got them on a technicality that someone like you or someone else or our firm can help them with. And usually it's because they invested in the wrong program and they didn't know it. But these are still people who've invested a lot of money in America.
Until recently, until obviously this administration, we almost never saw EB-5 applicants in removal, because even when they go to remove conditions on their green cards, the removal of conditions can be denied if the project didn't create enough jobs, right? That's fair. They were asked to create a certain amount of jobs. They were given a certain time. If not enough jobs were created, the I-829 petition to remove conditions can be denied, which could put you in deportation. But most of the times that process was delayed kind of for years. Now they're automatically sent to removal. There are many arguments, obviously, they can still present in removal to make them kind of qualify. I also think everybody should be treated like a human. That's just my general approach. Like, I don't think we need to care about anyone's background, identification, sexuality, and personal things. I think all humans should be treated like human. But I think there's a, specifically with EB-5, what we see and what is very obvious is that this individual has contributed a lot to the United States firsthand. So before they step foot here, before they ask for the green card, they have already done something for the United States, because you can't file your petition until you contribute your lawfully earned money to a project. And I think that's what's kind of helping that at least fair treatment, because it's hard, with other immigrants, we potentially don't know, right? If their visa category has nothing to do with their work or accomplishment for the United States, we don't know. Maybe they contributed a lot, maybe they contributed nothing. But with EB-5 applicants, that's already a known fact. These individuals at some point contributed a massive, substantial amount to help our economy. And so I think it's fair to recognize it. I always say that, and this is why I actually love working with the EB-5 program. It's one of the few immigration programs that we have where an individual earns their right to be a green card holder, where many other immigration programs that we have, it's a benefit. It's a benefit. You qualify either through family, but you don't have to proactively act to earn it. And I do really respect the fact that these investors get to earn their way in.
Irina, we've talked about a lot of things. We've gotten deep into the EB-5 program. We can't do a primer on it in a podcast interview, but I think we provided a lot of value. EB-5 support, links will be in the show notes, links to you in the show notes as well. Before I let you have your dinner and enjoy your night, is there anything else you'd like to say? The mic is yours about anything. I'll give you the last word.
I had my dinner early because that's like my life motto.
She goes with, I give her the
your-
last word, she goes with a dinner technicality.
I believe that eat your dessert first, and just in case, eat your dinner in case the podcast runs long. Thank you so much. I think the last thing that I do want to say, it's been, we can't do a full rundown, but I do want to say welcome to the EB-5 side for those immigration attorneys who have not experienced it. EB-5 support for attorneys is a community, training, mentorship, but I think there's an entire ecosystem of support. So you can learn how to work with this program, see if it provides a solution to your clients, or, you just learn something new. But it's been kind of amazing. And I think a lot of attorneys maybe are sometimes also get scared because they think, oh, as an EB-5 attorney, do I have to learn everything about the project? Actually, no, that's not your job. My job as a FINRA broker is to explain things about a project to your client. You don't have to know finance or economics, in order to do this kind of work.
That's a great way to end. To attorney listeners, you don't have to know numbers.
It's fine. You don't need to do math to be an EB-5 attorney. For things that get more technical, you always get an opinion letter of a CPA anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to do math. I don't want to sit there and interpret tax returns. I get a tax return that is not obvious. You pull in a CPA to provide you a CPA letter, and then just something you request from your clients makes their petition better. So it's definitely...
EB-5, don't have to do math, bring in a CPA. Irina, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. And on that, check out Irina in the show notes. It's great to speak with you as always. You can find her at a lot of these conferences too. Go and speak with her. She'll give you the business.
Absolutely. I'll see everybody at AILA National. EB-5 support will have a booth there. Come ask your questions. And Kevin, thank you so much for doing this podcast. I think that that's one of the things that I love the most, is being able to create a supportive community and finding communities that I need support in. And I think your podcast provides that. And that's kind of what we try to mirror on a smaller, more narrow focus side with EB-5 support for attorneys as well.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. Thank you for reading the text that I sent you before you came on the show to say that. Thank you for coming on the show and spending your time, and have a great night, Irina. Thank you.
You too.
So there you have it. I'm Kevin A. Gregg, a partner with the law firm Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, and this has been another episode of Immigration Review. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it with a friend and rate and review us. Each review helps new listeners find the show. And of course, subscribe to Immigration Review wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what we do and want to become a patron of the show, please check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Immigration Review, or click on the link in the show notes. And if you're interested in an official Immigration Review CLE certificate, email me at kgreg@kktplaw.com with your full name and the episode numbers for the 10 shows you've listened to. Also, feel free to email me with questions, comments, or anything at all, and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Immigration Review, or send us a tweet at ImReview. That's IMM Review. And we're always interested in hearing listener feedback. Like this review about the episode you just listened to from my very young son. Son, how did you like that episode? Indeed. If you, like my son, enjoyed what you just heard, again, please give the Patreon page some love. Feel free to review the pod, reach out to me with your own kind sounds, or do anything else nice that your heart desires. I'll be back next week for a brand new discussion. Until then, I'm Kevin A. Gregg, bringing you the Immigration Review.